If you are a conscious, breathing human being on this planet, then it's very likely that you know about The Simpsons. It's an iconic and long-running show that first graced our screens all the way back in the year 1989, a time before some of you watching this were even born. Even though the show was first created so many years ago, it's still going strong today, and currently has 34 seasons. It truly is one of the few shows that not only managed to stick around for a long time, but to make itself an integral part of our culture. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's wholesome, and more often than not, it pokes fun at the world in a way we can all relate to. But beyond the entertainment of The Simpsons, there's a mystery that has fueled speculation and theories for years. How the hell do they keep predicting the future? I doubt it will come as any surprise to all of you that The Simpsons has had its fair share of mysteries, theories, and conspiracies. But one of the biggest questions of them all involves this show's strange ability to predict the future. Politics, pop culture, technology, and science, The Simpsons has predicted it all, and it's led to a myriad of theories that try to explain the show's prophetic nature. Is it all a coincidence? Or is Matt Groening a time traveler? Or are the writers of The Simpsons all part of a secret underground society which rules the world and uses predictive programming to tell us their nefarious plans before they happen? Well, before we can unravel the truth behind this mystery, we first need to talk about the predictions themselves. But before we move on to the rest, I want to tell you about Factor, who are sponsoring today's video. Factor offer you fresh, ready-made meals delivered straight to your doorstep. These meals are created by chefs, designed by dietitians, and have science-backed nutritional quality. So they are super healthy, require no meal prep, and they are always fresh, never frozen. So it's really the most convenient way to eat right. Saves you so much time on cooking and prepping and doing dishes, and also on trying to figure out what you're going to make for dinner, lunch, breakfast. The meals all arrive pre-prepared and they're ready in 2 minutes or less, so it's way faster than takeaway, or takeout as the Americans would say. And having meals that are ready so quickly kind of take away the temptation to order some fast food that maybe isn't that good for you. And honestly, I just think it's far more convenient than fast food. It's faster. Plus, they have a lot of really flexible meal plans. They have for any kind of dietary preference, whether it's vegan, vegetarian, keto, or calorie smart plans, they have it. And they have more than 27 meal options each week, so there's definitely something that you'll like there. And you can choose to receive between 4 to 18 meals a week, so you can really customize this plan to whatever your specific needs are. And you can very easily as well modify your food preferences or just skip a week if you want to. So really, whether you are super busy and do not have time to prepare yourself meals, or you just don't want to, because you'd prefer to get something delivered to you, or you just don't want to think about what you're going to eat, then it's no problem, this is the perfect plan for you. Honestly, I would really recommend Factor, so if you'd like to check them out, you can use my link that's down in the description, or you can head to go.factor75.com and use my code that's written on the screen for you now, FACTORSE332661, to get 50% off your first box. So either use my link or use that code. Both of those are in the description for you to check out. It's a really great deal, so I wouldn't want you to miss it, so definitely do check it out. But anyway, thank you so much to Factor for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on with the rest of it. One of the very first Simpsons predictions to come true was from the season 3 episode titled Lisa the Greek, when Lisa correctly guessed that the Washington Redskins would win over the Buffalo Bills at the Super Bowl. Also, side note, the Buffalo Bills is the most American sounding thing I have ever heard in my entire life, and I think that it's truly beautiful. I don't know if they're a good team, but I hope that they win all the Super Bowls because that just sounds right to my European brain. Because of their success in predicting the game's winner, the next year, the Simpsons team decided to dub over the same episode prior to the next Super Bowl with the names of the competing teams. They had Lisa guess that the Dallas Cowboys would win, and once again, she was right. Right, so the Dallas Cowboys is an equally American sounding name to the Buffalo Bills, so I don't know which one I like better. Okay, I'm sorry, moving on. But Lisa the Greek was not the show's only sports-related prediction. In the season 21 episode, Boy Meets Curl, Homer and Marge end up playing for the US curling team in the 2010 Winter Olympics. I would say that this is weird, but Homer also went to space, so honestly it's pretty tame. And despite not actually being Olympic athletes, Homer and Marge somehow helped the US team defeat Sweden and win a gold medal. Then in the real-life 2018 Winter Olympics, the US actually did beat Sweden in curling and win a gold medal. And moving on from that, the show also hinted at the FIFA corruption scandal in 2014, a full year before the organisation's shady dealings were exposed in 2015. And another Super Bowl prediction from the show actually involves the halftime show instead of the game itself. The 2012 episode Lisa Goes Gaga shows Lady Gaga performing at the halftime show, descending from the roof and at one point in the show, sitting down to play piano. 5 years later, when the singer did perform at the Super Bowl, she descended from the roof and played piano later on. It's strikingly similar. But do not start to think that this phenomena is just limited to sports and the Super Bowl. This is not anything like that octopus on TV that used to predict who was going to win football matches. The Simpsons also seems to have a knack for predicting technologies that would later come to fruition in real life. They predicted smartwatches, video calling, drone surveillance, and autocorrect technology, which happens to be pretty crap. Though it is worth noting that when Apple were developing autocorrect technology, they would often reference "Eat Up Martha," the phrase in the Simpsons episode, to remind themselves that they needed to get the technology right. However, we do know that it doesn't actually always work, but they did their best. They did their best. Did you develop autocorrect technology? I don't think so. In terms of politics, one of the most well-known predictions that The Simpsons ever made, and you already know what I'm about to say, is when they predicted that Donald Trump would be president. In March of 2000, the episode Back to the Future aired, in which Lisa was the president of the US. In a meeting, she says this:
"We've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump."
And of course, we all know what happened several years later. Weirdly enough, The Simpsons even predicted that Trump would run for a second time again in 2024, which is currently happening. And these are a lot of predictions, but oh, we are not done yet. In 1997, an episode aired in which Marge reads Bart a book called Curious George and the Ebola virus, a virus which became a global health crisis in 2014. And although Ebola did exist at the time, it was relatively unheard of, making it a pretty weird addition to this episode. And people also claim that The Simpsons predicted the pandemic with their episode about the Osaka flu, but that's kind of only the case if you don't know the difference between Japan and China, so I think we're going to move on from that one. The Simpsons predicted a disastrous hurricane hitting New Orleans just a few months before it happened. They joked about Greece being sold on eBay in 1997, years before the country had a massive economic crisis. They predicted the Disney-Fox merger, Siegfried and Roy being attacked by their tigers, faulty voter machines, three-eyed fish, mutant tomatoes, the NSA spying scandal. They even showed the Shard in London before it had been constructed. The list just goes on and on and on. But one of the most eerie predictions ever made in the entire history of The Simpsons, in my opinion, is the God particle.
This is a very, very preliminary result, but we think it's very strong. It's very solid. Otherwise, we wouldn't present it. And we've slowly, as we've gathered data, rediscovered the standard model to more and more rare processes, and basically we're very confident now that we can go after the rarest, which is the Higgs.
The God particle is another name for the Higgs boson, which is a subatomic particle that gives other particles mass. So, essentially, we wouldn't exist without the Higgs boson because nothing would have mass. So understanding this particle is a huge part in understanding how the universe works. And it was only officially discovered in 2012 in the CERN Hadron Collider.
The Higgs boson, of course, was kind of a holy grail to find because we knew it was there, and finally we managed to find it.
So as you can imagine, this was a huge scientific breakthrough. Like I said, this was crucial for our understanding of the universe, and it was something that scientists had been trying to prove for years. But you know what, though? That's right. In an episode titled The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, in 1998, 14 years before the discovery of the Higgs boson, Homer Simpson decided that he wanted to be an inventor, and in one scene, he's in front of a blackboard writing some equations. Now, what we found out later, after the Higgs boson had been discovered by scientists, is that the formula used by Homer is the equation used to calculate the mass of the Higgs boson. This is utterly insane, that 14 years before this huge scientific breakthrough, momentous occasion in physics, that Homer Simpson got there first. And it wasn't even something that was focused on in the episode, it was just thrown in there on the board, just for a second. So you can pretty much see why I think this is one of the strangest predictions that The Simpsons has ever made, and we are going to come back to this later in the video because I have a lot to say about it. So with all the times that this show has shown us the future before it unfolds in real life, how have they done it? People have been asking this question for years, so much so that there are countless threads dedicated to trying to solve this mystery and giving their most realistic and also outlandish theories as to how they're doing this. So what are some of the potential reasons for these predictions? Well, one theory, although admittedly this is a theory you're not going to hear much of on these threads that I already mentioned, is that it's all just a big coincidence. The Simpsons is a satirical show. It pokes fun at society itself. They take trends and current events and they exaggerate them to make funny jokes. And in doing this, they could unintentionally reveal truths about society, or even potentially foreshadow things that haven't happened yet. Let's look at one example of this, a prediction that we already spoke about, which is the Back to the Future episode, where they predict that Trump will be president in the future. The thing is that at the time that this episode was written, Trump had actually talked about potentially running for president one day. It just wasn't something that was actually in the works.
Donald Trump was laying the groundwork for a presidential run.
And I can tell you, if I ever was in office, which is unlikely because I don't think I want to be, but if I ever was, that would not happen.
And it was something as well he said he probably wouldn't do.
This sounds like political presidential talk to me, and I know people have talked to you about whether or not you want to run. Would you ever?
Probably not, but I do get tired of seeing the country ripped off.
Why would you not?
I just don't think I really have the inclination to do it. I love what I'm doing. I really like it.
Also, it doesn't pay as well.
No, it doesn't.
And in an interview, one of the writers of this episode said that this was actually meant to be a warning to America of how far things could go, how exaggerated reality could be. It was a satirical take on politics. And then it came true. Another example of this could be their prediction of the Disney-Fox merger. This was meant to be a funny exaggeration of Disney's growing influence, as well as being a satirical take on the media. But once again, in this case, this satirical take could have foreshadowed reality. And although there is a case to be made that maybe it is just the fact that the show is satirical and it's all just a coincidence that this stuff comes true, this theory doesn't explain everything. What about the sports predictions, or all the times that they spoke about technology that hadn't been invented yet? Or Lady Gaga flying around on a wire at the Super Bowl? Well, a lot of people seem to suggest that it's all just a numbers game. As we mentioned earlier, The Simpsons has 34 seasons, and it currently has over 700 episodes. They've had thousands of storylines and thousands of jokes. Think about it for a minute. We need to consider the sheer volume of material in this show. If we round it up to 700 episodes and put around 22 minutes per episode, that amounts to more than 15,000 minutes or 250 hours of content. It's a massive amount of content, and it offers an almost endless supply of opportunities for the writers to make predictions, whether they meant to or not. With this much material, it's reasonable to expect that at least a few of these predictions would come true. This was actually summed up really well by another video.
Star Trek alone predicted cell phones, Bluetooth earpieces, virtual assistants, VR, and tablet computers. I mean, it's kind of unfair when you remember that Star Trek comprises over 760 episodes of television and 13 feature films. Wait a second, what other television show has over 700 episodes? In 29 seasons, the show made about 120,000 jokes, with the assumption that the show kept the average pace of about 8.54 jokes per minute. This number was based off of the first 12 seasons. If The Simpsons got about 20 predictions right, I'm not gonna read the whole thing. This only comes out to about a 1.6% success rate.
So shows like Star Trek and Doctor Who also have a huge number of episodes, and they too have predicted certain technological advances. It's not something that is limited to just The Simpsons. What is limited is the type of predictions. Because even if we are to say that it's a number games and look at these other shows that are predicting things too, Star Trek and Doctor Who, the examples that I've given, have only predicted technological advances. What makes The Simpsons different is the variety of things that they have predicted. Why hasn't Star Trek predicted that Greece's economy would crash? Why hasn't Doctor Who predicted live shows or the outcome of football matches? And while we're on it, why hasn't The Big Bang Theory, a show that is all about science and has equations all the time, why hasn't that show predicted a huge equation like Homer Simpson did when he predicted the equation for predicting the mass of the Higgs boson? Why is it just The Simpsons? Well, maybe it's not too far-fetched to suggest that Matt Groening might be a time traveler. There, I said it. With the sheer volume and accuracy of the predictions made in the show, some people have argued that Groening is either a man from the future or that he's somebody who has found a way to travel through time, and is then using the knowledge of the future that he has to put it into The Simpsons.
Are we worried this group is crossing into the conspiracy theory zone?
But there are a group of people who don't think that he's a time traveler. They think it's a little bit far-fetched and that time travel likely doesn't exist. However, they still don't trust Matt himself. And they've suggested that he has connections to powerful organizations, or that he and the writers might be part of some secret society who control the world.
Simpsons predicted the future shot by shot because we're part of the Illuminati. Which is true, we are.
And as such, he has knowledge of secret plans about the world, and that the reason that he throws these into The Simpsons is all part of predictive programming. But although Matt Groening doesn't talk about his own life that much, he has talked about the predictions. In interviews, he and an executive producer of the show have said that they're not predicting the future. They're just good at satire. If you haven't heard of predictive programming before, it's a theory that powerful organizations control the world, and they plan events that are going to affect humanity, but they want to subtly prepare humanity before these things take place. The biggest example used by people who think that Matt Groening may be a part of this is the episode where it looks like they may have predicted 9/11, because you have a magazine cover with the Twin Towers and $9 in front of it, so it looks like 9/11. And this is something that actually quite a lot of shows have been accused of. But what if that's not the case? What if it's not predictive programming? What if he's not a time traveler? What if it's something else? But still, it's all Matt Groening's fault. Well, perhaps he and his team have found a way to access the Akashic Records. I know, we've been talking about a lot of really out there theories, but just bear with me for this one. The Akashic Records are apparently a part of some cosmic database that contains information about every event that has ever occurred or will occur or is currently occurring in the world. And it is thought that through spiritual practices, psychic abilities, or other means like this, an individual could tap into the Akashic Records. So if this was the case for Matt Groening or any of the members of his writing team, they could be tapping into this cosmic database and just knowing everything that will ever happen and just subtly throwing it into The Simpsons, either for preparing people or just for fun. Because why not? It is The Simpsons after all. But do not worry, I am not done with these more outlandish theories, because I have a personal one of my own, actually, that I haven't seen anybody discuss. Well, to be honest, I haven't seen Akashic Records either, but it's not my favourite of the theories. My personal theory is that Matt Groening is in control of The Matrix. And I don't mean, obviously, the movie The Matrix, I mean the Matrix that we could potentially be living in. It's been suggested by scientists and philosophers and whack jobs alike that it's possible that we are living in a simulation, that an advanced race has found a way to simulate life and we're just living in it. And it has actually been discussed by people much smarter than me that mathematically it's more likely that we live in a simulation than we don't.
I'm waiting for someone to convince me that we don't live in a simulation. Our computing power is growing rapidly.
Right.
We create simulations of worlds. We have video games with characters that are inside the video game.
Right.
Imagine a day where you can simulate a world so perfectly with life forms, humans, so well that you can recreate every single neurosynaptic thought you could have, but now you're in the simulation on the computer.
But if we do live in a simulation, well, it's not just running itself. Somebody has to be in charge of it. And if you were in charge of something like this, would you not have a little bit of fun with it? I know I would. Perhaps Matt Groening thought the same thing. Perhaps he is in charge of everything, and he just wants to have a little bit of fun with it. So he goes in, either programs something, types something in, or just somehow puts on a virtual reality headset and steps into this world and makes a show called The Simpsons, where he then puts in predictions for the future because he can control the future. Because this is his world, and we're just living in it. Now, the Matrix theory, the time traveler theory, and the Akashic Records theory, they all seem to line up with something that Matt Groening did along with one of the writers of The Simpsons, David X. Cohen, which is create a show called Futurama. These people who are predicting the future wrote a show called Futurama, set in the year 3000. Are you kidding me? It's like they said, yep, we're from the future. Here, have this show about the future because we know all about it. Because we're from there. You may have noticed that I mentioned another name there. That is David X. Cohen. Like I said, David was one of the writers for The Simpsons. And then, along with Matt Groening, they co-created the show Futurama. He began writing on The Simpsons in 1993, and over the years he contributed to numerous episodes, including the Season 5 episode Bart Gets an Elephant, the Season 7 episode Treehouse of Horror 6, and the Season 10 episode The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace. Wait, if you remember, The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace was the episode of The Simpsons where Homer Simpson wrote the equation that predicted the mass of the Higgs boson, 14 years before it was discovered. David X. Cohen was one of the people who was involved with this episode, the man who co-created Futurama. So this is proof then. This is proof that David X. Cohen and Matt Groening together are time travelers from the future who are rubbing it in our faces with the show Futurama and then sprinkling little things into The Simpsons. Well, maybe not exactly, actually. The thing is, for this episode, the whole premise was that Homer Simpson wanted to become an inventor, and so they knew they were going to have a scene where he was writing formulas on a chalkboard. Now, according to Cohen, he wanted these formulas to look as realistic as possible, so he called a friend from MIT to write an equation that looked realistic. And not only that it was a genuine equation with a real answer, a real output. So he didn't put this equation in himself, but he wanted the equation to look real. And you might be wondering, well, why does he have a friend from MIT just readily available to write equations for him? You might also be wondering, why does he care if the equations look accurate? There's loads of shows where they just throw up a bunch of numbers, and it was only in the scene for a split second, so why does it matter? Well, because David X. Cohen has a degree in physics. He is a lover of science and maths, and he writes for this show. That's one of the reasons why there's so many maths jokes that are thrown into the show that the average person wouldn't recognize. Like when Apu says that he has a perfect memory and he can recite pi to 40,000 places, saying that the last digit is 1, which it is. In another episode, when on-screen showed these numbers, 8128, 8208, and 8191. And although they seem random, 8128 is a perfect number. 8208 is a narcissistic number, and 8191 is a prime number. Do I fully understand what all of this means? No, but I'm not a mathematician. But it turns out a lot of people writing for this show are. As it turns out, a lot of the writers on this show have advanced degrees in maths or science or even history. So we have David X. Cohen, a degree in physics. Ken Keeler, a PhD in applied mathematics. Al Jean, a bachelor's degree in mathematics. Jeff Westbrook, a PhD in computer science. Bill Odenkirk, a bachelor in chemistry. George Mayer, a bachelor in environmental science. J. Stewart Burns, a bachelor of science in physics. John Vitti, a bachelor degree in history. Ian Maxtone Graham, a bachelor degree in, again, history. Brian Kelly, bachelor of science in mathematics. Carolyn Amin, bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. John Frink, bachelor degree in physics. Dana Gold, bachelor degree in history, and Brian Kelly, bachelor degree in mathematics. This is not a definitive list, by the way. This is just an excerpt of all the writers that have worked on this show, and a good few of them have worked on Futurama as well. Dude, they're a bunch of nerds. They're smart people who have written in smart, highly educated jokes, maths jokes, history jokes. They're people who understand physics and the history of events, and they throw these into the show to make the perfect combination of humor and reality, which sometimes then results in them predicting the future, because they're making educated jokes. And I want to bring it back to the Higgs boson prediction, because the thing is, although this is a striking prediction, and for me it is still one of the weirdest and eeriest predictions in the whole show, the equation that Homer writes isn't the exact equation that predicts the mass of the Higgs boson. I know. I was shocked too. The equation is almost exactly the same, which is still a huge and confusing achievement for the show. But Homer's calculation shows a result of 777 giga-electron volts, which is a really hard word for me to say, so I hope you appreciate that. But the result that the team at the Hadron Collider got was 125 giga-electron volts. Still very hard for me to say. So it's not the exact equation. Although, according to Simon Singh, the man who wrote the book on maths in The Simpsons, literally he wrote the book on maths in The Simpsons, says that although these numbers seem quite different, 777 compared to 125, in physics terms this is actually a very, very close result. So I decided to ask my physics friend about this. I asked him, I'm just wondering how significant the difference is, and is Homer's close enough to be considered an accurate prediction? And he responded, oof, this is particle physics, girl. I ain't done that yet. So there's your answer. I don't have a friend at MIT I can call. So I'm just going to trust Simon Singh and David Kaplan, who have spoken about this and who are far more educated in physics than I am. But still, like Simon Singh points out, this is a very, very similar result, and the equation itself is extremely similar too. So it's still quite unlikely for something like this to coincidentally happen, for them to coincidentally predict the equation that predicts the mass of the Higgs boson. But it's not impossible, given what we know about the writers of the show, and the fact that a mathematician at MIT wrote this equation to look like a real equation. Not impossible, but just very, very unlikely that they would stumble onto this equation 14 years earlier. So with all of this information that we know about the writers and how they write this show, any reasonable person would now conclude that, yeah, it is just a combination of a numbers game, coincidence, and just really good writing. But the thing is, I'm not a rational person, so I'm not going to conclude that, because I'm still stuck on something. I'm still stuck on the accuracy of some of these predictions. No, the Higgs boson equation was not exact, but it was very, very close. And it still took them 14 years and using the Large Hadron Collider to get a similar result. What about the three-eyed fish? What about the NSA spying scandal? Something people didn't know about yet. What about the accuracy? Some of these predictions are just too similar and just too difficult to predict by accident. Sure, some of these predictions could just be coincidences. The 9/11 one, it's not that convincing. But the fact that they showed the shard exactly where it is in London before it was constructed, now that's a bit more convincing. And can stuff like that really be chalked up to good writing? Well, I'm sure for a lot of you, probably that is the correct answer. For a lot of you, it's acceptable that just they have a lot of highly educated writers, they like to poke fun at society, and they just come up with stuff like this. But for a lot of you watching as well, I know that this is not a good enough answer for you, because there are just too many predictions, and there is just too much accuracy for it to be coincidence. And also, why the hell would they do Futurama if they weren't just rubbing it in our faces that they're time travelers? Like, come on now. But whatever you believe, whether you think it's just a numbers game or coincidence, or just a combination of good writing from educated writers, or whether you think that they're time travelers, or that Matt Groening is in control of the Matrix, or that they've all accessed the Akashic records, or that they are all part of a secret society that are going to destroy us all and just want to tell us about that beforehand. Whatever you believe, it is undeniable that The Simpsons has had a huge impact on our culture. It's a show that is so well loved, it's had games that we love too, and it's things that we can quote to each other. It's been going on for so many years and people still love it today. Whether or not they like the new episodes, they still love the show. And even though it's kind of weird and sometimes a bit creepy, it is fun for people to get together and theorize how the show does this time and time again. How do they always predict the future? If it wasn't fun, there wouldn't be so many threads dedicated to it. These predictions and the show itself have captivated audiences. And although we may never have a definitive answer, unless Matt Groening comes down and says, hey, actually I am a time traveler going back to the future now, even though we won't get the definitive answer, it's always going to be fun to just watch the show, enjoy it, and theorize. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Please do share in the comments with me what your favorite theory is, what you think is actually going on. I would really love to know. You all know I like my Matrix theory. I'm sorry, I just do. But of course I know that theory is not for everybody, so do share down below what you think. I really did put a lot of effort into this video, so I would really appreciate it if you would please share it around. Like this, I've actually been working on this video for weeks. I even joined the library so that I could take out Simon Singh's book on the mathematics in The Simpsons and read it for this video. I'm now a library member thanks to this video, so yeah, I put a lot of effort in. Please share it around, and if you enjoyed it, then please subscribe. I'm going to be doing more videos like this one very soon, so I hope you'll stick around for those. Turn on notifications to get notified and all that. You know what to do. Like, comment, share. Follow me on social media. I'm VangelinaSkov everywhere, and I also have a Patreon. Don't forget, if you use the link in my description or you go to go.factor75.com and use my code FACTORSE33261, that is also in the description for you as well, then you can get 50% off your first box with Factor. But most of all, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!